just as you do if you own yourself a swimming pool, you have floating things to lie on and play in the pool with and have fun in the pool. Well, I've done the same for a pond, and what I've got is a whole selection of things, from floating plant holders like these, where you will just come and put your marginal plant in. You'll just drop that in. This is a bit of an artificial plant, but it would be a real one if it was a pond, and that will just float around your pond, and it looks quite attractive. The advantage with these floating rocks is that, and floating islands like this one down here, is the fact that people that have got big fish, big koi carp fish, they tear your plants apart, so you can't really have greenery in your pond because they're killing it all the time. Whereas this way you can have these floating islands, and some of them are quite large, like this one here. You know, that's nearly 3 feet by 3 feet, and you can put 3 big, not big plants, but you can put 3 plants in those. What I typically suggest you do is you pull the plant out of the pot for this particular type, and you put some gravel just in the bottom so the soil doesn't just wash out, and then you put the plant in there and you decorate the top of it with gravel, decorative gravel, and that way it looks nice, and then the plant roots are filled with water because it sinks down about halfway. So for example, the water will be coming up to here, so all the roots will be in the water, which is what they need, and then they're just going to flourish in your pond. And you know, if you've got a big sized pond, look at that, it's just magic having an island in the middle of that. This is our floating islands. They're floating rocks, the ones that I've just talked about. The floating island here, this has just got this material. You don't need to use gravel in this case because this is your netting material. Your roots of your marginal plants are just going to grow all through that, and it's just going to be covered in a mass of plants when the season's right. So this is a larger one. This is 4 foot by 3 foot. That's great. We have, what else we got? These are our sunken hide logs, but also our floating rocks, floating logs I should say. And I'm a turtle enthusiast, so I've grown up always having turtles in Australia. I love putting these in ponds, and they don't turn your colour of your pond tannin colour, which what happens with wood when you put it in water. These will just stay in there and they'll float, and that way your turtles will come up there and sun themselves, which they need to do to keep themselves healthy. So these floating logs are just fantastic. There's a range of those like this. So actually here's my smallest one. So this is going to capsize if a big turtle tries to swim on that one, so you want something pretty small for that. That could even go in a fish tank and still work really well. And then we come up to this, which is just shy of 4 foot. And you know, I've put some of these in the local dams down at the golf course where I live, and every day I drive past there's 3 to 4 turtles on it. Sometimes little ones this big with a big one like this here, and it just looks fantastic. They love it. So floating logs are fantastic for your ponds. Here's a bigger one. This is about 7 foot long. Great, just decorative pieces that you can have sitting in your pond or around the edge of your pond to make it look more natural. So we've got logs, we've got islands, we've got floating rocks, we've got floating crocodiles. Why not, you know? I don't know whether it really works, but they say it keeps the heron away when you've got this floating around in your pond. So this is a little freshwater crocodile from Australia, a replica of that. It's about 4 foot long. And then we have, for you Americans, we have a floating alligator. We actually call this our 8 foot floating alligator. I don't know why, because it's actually about 7 foot, but by the way, it looks just as good as the other one. It'll float under the, oh, not under the water, but about halfway, and his eyes just pop out and he just looks fantastic. So another little recommendation, what you can do is you can put a screw in here, and then that screw you can tie some string to that or some fishing line and take that down to a rock on the bottom of the tank, and it'll just stay in the middle of the pond and not get sucked into your skimmer box, which is often what will happen if you don't tie these things down. So that's it. And then behind me is a big sunken hide log, and what's really good for these is you can put those in. Your fish, your big koi, your fish love it. It gives them protection from the raccoons as well, which you guys have over in America. We don't have in Australia, but we certainly do have the herons. So this way the fish can swim in that. We've got a range of sizes of these, and they look natural and they also work really well for your fish and keeping them a safe spot in your pond. So actually I'm going to move to one more thing for the pond. By the way, let me just run over here. What I hate seeing is seeing a pump and electrical lead and tubing come out of your pond. So we make these pump cover rocks. This is our large one, small and medium, and then they'll simply just cover your pump and then your tubing as well, so you don't see any of that. So whenever you have that shown, keep in mind you've got pump cover rocks to cover that. So whole selection of stuff, all easy and fun to play with. So thanks for joining me.